This fungus is called in Latin Daldinia concentrica, although over here in the UK the most common name now is probably King Alfred's cakes. You may also see it referred to as Cramp Balls or Coal Fungus and maybe a few other different common names. It's not edible, it's not particularly harmful either, but I wouldn't want to eat it. But it's not an edible fungus, but it is a useful one. It's something that is used in bushcraft and primitive firelighting practice as a way of either extending the life of an ember or transporting an ember and that heat and moving on to somewhere else. That's because when you break it apart, you get these concentric rings, or these sort of half concentric rings at least, and if you drop a spark or an ember from a fire into there, when the fungus is dry, it will start to glow like a charcoal briquette. So that means you can transport that fire or take a glowing ember with you and carry it relatively easily from one camp to a next, as our ancestors would have done. Or maybe in more modern practice, if you're working with a bow drill set or a hand drill or a fire plough or something like that, and you're getting to the point of making a tiny little ember after probably quite a lot of effort, then you can drop that ember into a pre-prepared little piece of Daldinia concentrica and relax a little bit, knowing that, well, you've got an ember and you can break this apart and have two embers or keep that ember going for longer. So it's a really useful thing for both primitive skills and modern bushcraft. And it's something people often quite want to go out and find for themselves. So that's what we're going to go and do now. At some point in this video, I'm going to need to actually show getting these things glowing, aren't I? And lighting a fire with it, or at least getting it to flame. So I'm going to need some more dry material. And given that it's Wales in spring, there isn't a huge amount of dry around. But I do know that up here on top of the hill fort, they have been trying to beat down the bracken a bit. So there's a huge pile of dead bracken up there. So I think I might divert off and go and grab some. So this is what I'm hunting for. This is quite a sizable dead ash tree. So with this particular fungus, which isn't this one, this is a different bracket fungus, with Daldinia concentrica, what you're looking for are dead or very nearly dead ash trees, because that's the habitat that this particular species of fungus likes to live in. And as with any fungus really that you're going to find in a tree or in the ground or somewhere else like that, what you're looking for is the habitat. You're either looking for the type of soil it grows in, or the type of vegetation it lives alongside, or in this case the actual dead wood that it lives in. And the round black smooth bobble things that we're looking for, they are the fruiting bodies of the organism, just like the fruiting bodies of this bracket fungus here. The organism lives in the dead wood. The bits that we pick, the mushroom part, that is the fruiting body. Think about it like picking a blackberry from a bush. The bush is the mycelium in the organism, but the blackberry itself is the bit you're picking and using as a human. So this tree, to be honest, we knew they were here because we run courses here, but this is the tree we were heading for because we know that this has been infected by the mycelia, by the organism of Daldinia concentrica, of those round black bobbles. So through the magic of editing, we're going to go from this here to this here. And this is, well, to be honest, it's only about 5 feet away from where we started. But this is what we are ultimately looking for. We're looking for a dead ash branch, and on the side of it, these round, they look like almost like climbing holes. These round black fungi, and they are quite well attached. Different ones in different stages of development. You've got these tiny little round ones here, little bobbly ones like that, which are going to grow, hopefully, into bigger things like this. And then these bigger, more mature ones, and then these ones that are past their best and they've started to rot down. So I'm going to try and take off some of these bigger ones here. So you can, most of the time, you can kind of grab them and peel them off like that, and they come off in one chunk. But for some, they are, because of the shape of the bark and the roughness of the bark, they're really quite well attached. And so you end up having to use quite a bit of force. And I tend to avoid the ones like this, which are just all crumbly and broken and dead. So to process these, you need to gather them like this and then normally take them somewhere else. You need to dry them out somewhere to make them usable. So you can either dry it out next to a campfire, or you have to do that carefully because they will burn, or you can do what I do and put them in a string net bag and then hang them up next to the log burner at home, and we just have a pile of natural things drying there for future use. You can leave them out in the sun, and if you are working with a vehicle, then you can park your vehicle so it's facing the sun or facing south, well, in the northern hemisphere anyway, and put these on the dashboard of the car, and your windscreen will act like a solar kiln and dry them out quite well. You should be aware though that when you do leave them out to dry, they will spore and you'll end up with black fuzzy powder, almost like iron filings, over the dashboard or wherever you've left them. So do be aware of that. But that's what I'm looking to take, and taking them home to dry out and then storing them somewhere dry so I can make use of them later. So let's cut to some shots of just showing how many fruiting bodies there are on just this one tree. Okay, go. the idea. This is my favourite use for Daldinia concentrica, is taking an ember from a bow drill and dropping it down into a pile of broken Daldinia, or at least taking the Daldinia to that and allowing that ember to then spread out into the other pieces of fungus, because that means I have my ember in here, which I've successfully made into fire, and then I have the ember I made originally still going down there on the floor. There we are, that's dried the bracken out nicely now. Just walk around the camp with it a bit more to get some airflow in, but you get the idea. So for fire by friction, when you're creating an ember, it's perfect for that, for prolonging that ember and giving you a second chance. Because if this failed, or I dropped this, or a white-tailed eagle came in and flew away with it and carried it off for itself, I will be able to just shrug and go off and gather more bracken and make another nest, because my original piece, my original ember, is still going. So I've made fire, but I've actually made fire twice. I could also take pieces of this and use it to carry an ember from this campfire out to somewhere else, and that's what our ancestors did, possibly for, you know, keeping fires going for days, weeks, months, maybe even years, by never actually letting all of the embers go out. So it's a really useful piece. It's, you know, more interesting from a historical point of view and as a bushcraft point of view, but it's also, you know, potentially a survival thing. So there. Gotta find something to do with this now.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. So when it comes to the question of how many you should take or how much you should take, well, flip it the other way around. Think about how much you should leave behind. So I try to not take any more than 20 or 30% of what is on a individual tree or in an individual area. That leaves a really good healthy population behind to then spread the spores from these fruiting bodies to go off and infect other pieces of wood, of suitable wood, so that this species can carry on and develop in this area. Because you've got to remember that these species of fungi, they aren't there waiting for humans to come and make use of them. They are performing a role. They are breaking down dead wood. They are helping with the health of that grassland over there, or that woodland, or that woodland. They are clearing space. They are creating homes and fuel for insects, invertebrates, and small mammals and bird life and the rest of the ecology of, well, the world. So fungi are incredibly important, so we want them to stay in an area and carry on doing that job. You also want to leave some behind for other people, because it's quite selfish to come along and strip everything off a tree just so that you can gather as many things as you can together for yourself. No, go gather a small amount and then go and make use of it, and if you need more, go to somewhere else and repeat that same process. Don't just take everything from here. And if you do come to a place and there's only 2 or 3 fruiting bodies, well, take a photo, make a note of it. There might be more on that branch later in the year. There might be more in the area. Maybe look downwind of that area, see if you can find some more there. But don't just take every single thing off a tree. So that's about it. They're really common. They're really quite easy to find. You've just got to go out and find the right locations, process them in the right way, and then use them in the right way. When I'm looking for this, I tend to look for mixed or deciduous woodlands that are fairly mature, so that there's a good chance that there's more than one dead tree within that woodland. I tend to go out after a period of rain, but maybe 1 or 2 weeks after, so that those fruiting bodies have a chance to develop after the rain has triggered them. I collect no more than 20 or 30% of what is there, and if there are only a couple there, then I leave them and come back another time or go and find another location. I take them home and dry them and keep them dry because they do reabsorb moisture, and I do it in a place that I don't mind if I end up filling it with spores from Daldinia concentrica, which tells you a lot about how tidy our house is, but it's an interesting house, so at least there's that. And then when I use them, and to be honest, these days I use them mostly when we're teaching things like bow drill or fire by friction on our bushcraft courses. But when I use them, I try and keep them dry for as long as possible, break them in half so you have that rough inner surface, and then drop a spark into there or push it up against an ember to make that thing carry on glowing. The fungus itself won't burst into flame just by blowing on it. It'll just glow hotter and hotter and hotter until you end up burning your fingers, but it won't burst into flame. So you want to make sure that you've got something ready for it to go into, so either a little nest of dry tinder or of some type, or some other medium for making fire. That's Daldinia concentrica, where to find it, how to grow, how to gather it, how to process it, and how to use it. And it's all pretty simple. It's find a dead ash tree, take it to somewhere dry it, add a spark to it, use that to make fire. It's pretty simple. And if you want to come and learn how to do this in person, in fact in this woodland, then take a look at the links below or go to originaloutdoors.co.uk. You'll see our list of courses on there, and we've got some courses where we cover firelighting by friction and just identification of things like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.